Hi, everyone. Welcome to Kazouza Hamra. I'm Nora, and this is the podcast where we reclaim Arab narratives one story at a time. My guest today is Tiffany Totah. Hopefully, I pronounced that correctly. A licensed marriage and family therapist who has dedicated her work to breaking the stigma around therapy in Arab communities. She helps people find calm, clarity, and confidence by teaching simple, real tools for communication and emotional wellness. Tiffany's voice has become so important because she speaks directly to our struggles, whether it's guilt, family pressure, or toxic cycles, and shows us that healing isn't weakness, it's courage. So thank you so much, Tiffany. By the way, are you okay with me calling you Tiffany, or you want me to call you
Course,
this?
yeah.
I wasn't
No,
sure.
no. No, no. It's Tiffany.
So obviously, I came across your page a few months ago. I've been following you. I absolutely love your work. I resonate with a lot of things that you say, whether it's, the guilt aspect, the dramatic mother in the household, the cultural struggles that we all face when it comes to identity, who we are. We're told to be one way at the house, and then when we're going to school and interacting with our peers is a completely different situation. So I invited you on my podcast. Thank you for accepting my invite. And I want to kind of just start by telling the audience who you are, and we'll take it from there.
Yes, thank you, Nora. So, yes, so my name is Tiffany, and I'm a marriage and family therapist. I've been in practice for over 20 years. I've done pretty much all you can possibly do in the mental health field. So I worked in school-based mental health. I worked in juvenile detention centers,
Wow.
hospital settings. I've worked in crisis situations, foster care, substance abuse. I also taught in a chemical dependency certificate program, young adults, so from children to young adults to now adults. So it's the
Oh,
lifespan.
wow.
And for 20 years, I want to say probably since the beginning of my practice, I wanted to serve our communities in some way. Yet you're talking 20 years ago, there was maybe
Wow.
me and two other therapists of Arab descent doing therapeutic work. We were the Lone Rangers for quite some time in the San Francisco Bay Area. And as time went on, trying to get into serving our communities waxed and waned for me because it was quite challenging. So I
Right.
did what I could when I would meet Arab families, whether it's at the county where I worked
Yeah.
or at a hospital setting where I worked. I did what I could to try and educate doctors and other practitioners around their approach to treating people from our community was not helpful in a lot of ways because they would be seen as resistant or they would be seen as non-collaborative. And so I felt like I did little things throughout my career. It wasn't until probably two years ago I started going on social media under Teta's Wish. So for those that have
Yes.
followed me for a long time, Teta's Wish was like the original. And it evolved because I realized I loved my Teta, but it really wasn't her wish. It was my wish for the next generation. And that morphed into Community for International Arab. And that started a year and a half ago. And it's been incredible to be able to serve our community in this way. And I still do private practice, of course, and I do the social media aspect of it. So I do both, and I
Yeah.
do shops and things like that. So,
Well, what are some messages that you got when you were growing up about therapy overall? I mean, when did you know that this was definitely going to be your calling?
oh,
Because you have a lot of experience in it.
yeah, well, I never wanted to be a therapist. Growing up when I was 10, I wanted to be a teacher. And now my parents like it was all about making money here in the United States.
Yeah.
So teachers historically, unfortunately, don't make money in this country. And so my parents were like, you need to get into business or you need to, well, first, even at that time, you know, it was about getting married and having children.
Yeah.
Career wasn't necessarily emphasized. So it really didn't necessarily matter what I did. However, they did pushed me away from teaching and wanted me to do more business or entrepreneurial um, things. I was like, the most noble profession, you guys are still telling me no.
Yeah, that's interesting. 'Cause I usually most Arabs are always pushed to being doctors, engineers, lawyers, or educators.
Yes, my family, they're a family of entrepreneurs, so they
Oh,
were
that's
more in
awesome.
business and that piece of it. So my career kind of went all over the place because whenever other parents steer their children into something that moves away from their own calling or what they know, we many of us who can understand that we may kind of go through different iterations of our career to finally land on what we were meant to do.
Right.
So here I am, I'm teaching. So I'm exactly what I'm meant to be doing, just not in the capacity that I thought. So I moved into human resources. I did that for 10 years. I got my master's in human resource management and worked in the corporate setting for a long time. And then I moved to Argentina.
Wow.
Yes, for one of my, I called it my midlife crisis, my quarter
I l
crisis.
okay.
And then I just said I was needing change. So when I moved to Argentina, I was teaching English. And then from there, I said, I really love teaching. So when I come back to the States, I don't care what my parents say, I'm going to pursue teaching. So in pursuing teaching, I ended up in a mental health or uh, classroom. And I didn't know that because I just go by instinct. I said, "Oh, that job looks good. Let me just grab it." And sure enough, it was a joint venture between behavioral health and behavioral health services and the education. So it was a blend.
Yeah.
So that was the first time I was exposed to therapists and therapy.
Yeah. Well, I know for me growing up, I wanted to go to fashion school, and that was absolutely just definitely discouraged. But I was definitely encouraged to either go to law, doctor. I fell into teaching. I didn't essentially wasn't planning on becoming a teacher, but I started substitute teaching after I finished my master's program, and I really liked it. I loved interacting with the students, and I'm like I saw myself in them, like with whatever they were struggling with. Now I was substitute teaching in primarily very a lot of Arabs around in that district. So I saw their struggles and I resonated. I'm like, "Oh my God, that's exactly what I went through when I was in high school." So I had already had my psychology degree, and then I said, "Okay, let me just go ahead and pursue this, get the teacher cert." And I started and I haven't left since. Like I love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah,
Nice.
so it's pretty
So cool.
cool.
So cool.
Now, you were born here or born
Born in the US.
you
Yes.
were born in the US. Okay. And have you ever where are you from?
My family's originally from Palestine.
Okay. Have you ever visited Palestine?
I did. I did. I don't think I quite shared this even on my platform. I was quite active politically growing up,
Oh,
probably from the time I was 13 years old. So, being a Palestinian American, it's very much embedded within us to keep the voice of our people heard.
yeah.
And so, growing up, so I was political. My dad says I was political from the womb, always fighting and always advocating. So I went back home. I think the first time was 13 years old. I think I was entering adolescence, and my parents were probably afraid I was going to run amok all summer and
Oh
just
wow.
do things I wasn't supposed to do. So like, let's just ship her off to back home and see what happens. And it was incredible. It was an amazing experience, and uh, very healing for me to be able to connect with cousins back there and uh, el ard in the land,
Yeah,
and
no,
it brought
absolutely.
me back, and I was even more fiercely. If I wasn't political before, I was more fiercely once I came home, and that was pretty much a good portion of my teenage years. Was Palestinian American advocate, uh, youth advocate in a lot of my through I think my mid 20 no my early 20s.
That's amazing. I'm sure when
Yeah.
you went back there, was it a culture shock at all at one point? Like, were you like, "Oh my God, what's going on here?"
Yeah, كل شيء عيب, but
'Cause
but
shy,
everything
right?
everything was عيب here too, like, if anything, I went back home and their mentality because they moved forward with the times. Our parents that immigrated to the US, عقلهم لسه from the 1950s or 40s in the way
Yeah.
they were raising us. So looking at like Banat talking to guys at the Riyadh, at the Nadi, and I'm thinking,
Yeah, yeah.
never allowed to talk to, boys over in the US. And so I thought they were more progressive actually and more open-minded is what I saw growing up. Then I went back وقت الانتفاضة in 89 and that was to help support humanitarian efforts over there. And I was 18. And that was profoundly difficult
Mhm.
to be able to go through that. And I was only there for a month or so. I can't even imagine, what our people go through there daily. So that was another pinnacle point. But was it culture? I was there for different reasons. So
Yeah.
there wasn't much of a culture shock for me.
Did you find a lot of the, like, let's say, for example, when you were here and you go back home, were there open about you talking about any problems you had? Did they encourage you, hey, speak up if something bothers you? Or is this everything is
Oh,
aib? You should never
Yee.
discuss it?
No way. No way. Uh, we are really good at emotional suppression. And we, even when I was there in 89, I was acutely aware of um, our people self-medicating with
The shisha? Or
things of that nature.
yeah.
Yes. And so I was hyper aware of their coping mechanisms were not necessarily the healthiest. And I was hyper aware of who am I to
Yeah.
even remotely judge how they're
Yeah,
coping,
yeah,
if
yeah.
they're even alive. Right. And so it was just all these conflicting things about supportive services and what we can do here in the United States to help support them.
Why do you think, like, what are the contributing factors, I guess, that makes us become so, like, don't deal with your emotions, just suppress everything. I don't talk about it. Myth of Dahina. Where do you think that comes from? I mean, overall, like, when you speak with, I'm sure you've had a lot of experience working with Arabs now at this point.
Yeah.
I always try to figure out, like, where does this come from? Like, why were they taught this to be a part of the norm as to not express emotionally?
I think I am not. I think there are plenty of historical factors that will be able to talk about that. I also think um, our religions, no matter your
Yeah.
religion, moved away from the essence of the spiritual nature of a
Yeah.
lot of our religious texts, and we moved more into more dogmatic. Um,
Yes.
uh,
Spot on. Absolutely.
right. So, and I don't know if I'm not well versed. I can't even
Right.
speak to
Yeah. Yeah. I
scholars
understand.
and think tanks that address this. However, what I see is displacement, immigration, colonialism, all these things. And then you don't have the coping mechanisms people are going to suppress because that's their survival. So I think a lot of Arab communities have been in survival mode for a long time. And over the generations, it just gets passed down. And I truly believe, and this is the hope that I have, is that the next, not my generation, but their children and their children's children will
Yeah.
be hope for the shift in these generational cycles.
And what does it take for us to shift? Like, what has to happen with our generation for us to make these changes? Is it because, you often hear online and something has been really popularized in culture about boundaries, setting boundaries, whereas older generations take that to be personal. Like, what do you mean you're setting boundaries? What is this? But you're like, no, I need to let you know how I deal with things because if I don't have boundaries, how do I know where I draw the line? Essentially. So what are we doing or what can we do to continue moving? Because we carry collective trauma. I'm sure, we our ancestors' trauma has been passed down to us. But what can we do now as an Arab community to help us push through?
So I think, and we're all learning, right? What language, because boundaries is a very, because even yes, we need to have boundaries, but I think that fil Arabi or in our language or how we approach, it's not that we're setting a boundary with our family. Yes, we are. Yes, in one sense. Yet we're honoring ourselves.
Yes.
And I
Okay.
think that's the distinction, that we're not trying in honoring ourselves, we're going to be better for our parents. They may not understand that because they're they may be used to the tuash, the arguing. I'd rather have you with me in distress than you taking care of yourself and coming back whole.
Yeah. I guess there's a fear, maybe for that, there's a fear aspect that they're going to lose their children and that collectivistic culture mentality, like the
There's a
Tufdahil family.
there's that, and I also think that there's a fear because they know on some level that their children don't necessarily need them. So when you're talking about a family system that may be challenging, the adult can leave that system and thrive. If anything, they do quite well.
No.
What I'm trying to do with my platform is saying, okay, I get that dynamic. I really do. And can we bridge that? And how do we bridge that is, yes, we want to honor ourselves and take care of ourselves. And some parents that are open enough, because I've seen it, they will adapt.
No.
They do because they need you. They want you. That's part of our strengths. So, with that said, what do we need? We need a lot of patience, which many Arab don't have. We don't have patience.
And we're stubborn. The, there is collective traits that we'll have. We're very stubborn, but I feel like we're also very passionate people.
Yes.
And I do feel that there is this notion that we want to be fair with most. Not, of course, you're always going to have the people who aren't in our culture, in any group, essentially. But I do think there's an essence of us always wanting to be fair. And that perhaps can come from for all the injustices we've experienced back home, that we have this need to be fair.
Uh, I see it a lot as graciousness. We are very gracious. Well, I call us the culture of dichotomy. So
Hmm.
we're extremely gracious, yet unforgiving.
Okay, yes, I'm forgiving that for sure. Because things
Okay.
do get brought up from like 1975.
We um, can be profoundly rigid and stubborn in many ways, yet we allow people to trample all over our boundaries or just allow people to do things that most people would have set a boundary with much earlier.
Well,
So, yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, so it was just around we need to be aware, and what I work with a lot of my clients around is this awareness around this dichotomy, that we have so much light and beauty, and that's probably the human condition, not just an Arab condition, uh,
Hmm.
beauty, yet there's so much trauma also underneath all that. And so, how can we live with both? And how can we listen to each other and understand the different generations instead of punishing one another for our pain?
Yeah, I do agree. We do punish each other a lot. And this is so something just came to my mind. Have you ever read the book The Kite Runner?
Hmm.
Well, there's this scene in that book where I guess he after he living in America, he goes back and his dad's it was his uncle or his friend, I forget the other character in there. He has cancer and he tells him, "Come, I'll bring you back to California and I'll get you treated." And his response was, "I see America has infused you with this optimism." So I don't know that always stuck with me. I'm like, because I think that line, even though it's so simple, yet definitely describes mentality in terms of the struggles people go through over there, how they're not really optimistic. Like, yeah, halas, I have cancer, I'm gonna die. Whereas here, it's like, okay, well, there's potential to this, but I can do something like this. I can change my diet. I can go to this doctor. So I don't know why that resonated with me, but I think it showed the difference between how we view things from collectivistic to individual cultures.
I can see that, and both have its beauty. And have a few videos on victim mentality, and with all the talk of breaking generational cycles, uh, part of it is breaking out of that victim mentality. And that begins with having hope for change. Because I hear all the time, "Tiffany ليش أنتِ بتشتغلي مع العرب؟ إحنا هيك، خلص معاكِ، في عندِك الplatform تبعتِك عن الmental health, like, why do you do that? العرب بتغيّروش." And I said, "That's your story. That's your that's how you view life. That's not how I want to leave." أنتم دايمًا بتحكوا عن الlegacy of the family reputation of the family and all this stuff. Well, I too have a legacy that I want to pass on to the younger generation, is to say there is hope.
Yeah.
You're the hope.
Right, well, what's interesting is they do give that advice, like خلاص يعني عديها, يعني it's done, don't worry about it. But they also romanticize the past. When I grew up, things were like this, and the community and the whole entire building, we all knew each other. Like when I used to go to Syria, I literally the entire building knew each other. When there was a party, we would all be in each other's houses. But that's me on vacation. I don't know what it was like just living there throughout the years as an adult, adolescent, adult, to see if that really is the case. But they do have, at least from my experience, they do have the sense of romanticizing their upbringing in some way.
Well, I think we tend to want to recall. Uh, they want to recall the beauty of where they came from, right? And that also may come from feeling the loss of that. The only thing I can speak to that is we need a balance between reality, what the reality was, and a lot of it is quite beautiful, and also not living in fantasy either, because
Do you think our people live in fantasy?
I think that there is a lot of denial in our culture, correct? A lot of
No.
around the impact that has occurred for them, the impact of certain situations. There's a lot of denial, but I also think it's part of their survival. But this is why the younger generation is pushing up against it, because they're saying your survival techniques are we're not living in that anymore.
No.
And so they're pushing against these old systems. They're saying we need to look at things differently because we are in a new world. We're in a
No.
different we're in a different space right
We're
now.
we're having different experiences, so we need to, especially now, right now is a pivotal time for us to start really having these important conversations.
That's right. But the parents don't forget, like, they brought children to different countries all over the diaspora to give them a better life, and they've done that, right? We've
No.
been privileges that it's been incredible. Yet they forget that when you have that, it comes with change,
No.
and you cannot operate in the same way as when you first came to the country, whichever
You know,
country.
it's interesting when my brother and I were brought here, literally until we're probably in our early 20s, we always heard our parents, every conversation, every planning was when we go back to Syria. When we go back to Syria, like we own 2 homes in Syria. At one point they owned a home, but then they sold the home here. But everything was regarding going back to it's like they never, like they left physically, but mentally they never left. And then I also think there's this guilt that they carry of, and maybe you could speak to it if you have clients, maybe perhaps have experienced something similar. But if you're the one who made it out of the country, you have this pressure to produce money, make money to send back home. And I often see that a lot with men, their struggles of like, how do I take care of my family here, but I still have this responsibility to my siblings, to my, aunts and uncles back home. And believe it or not, I've met so many Arabs that they're always fighting about something back home. And, you're the one that left. So therefore you're responsible now for us. So you're making money over there. And it's just more conflict. So do you see that as being one of like the stressors that men face maybe in our community? Not that I want to focus on
You
men right now, but
No, I think it's important to talk about our Arab men and their mental health. I'm a firm supporter
Yeah.
of men mental health in general.
Yeah.
So, yes, what you're speaking to is, um, again, a learned helplessness in many ways. Let me back up.
Yeah.
When, because my father was the one that also came here. He had done well for himself, supported his family back home, in many ways, um, and so I understand the pressures. And sometimes he would do for them what he didn't do for us as his own children, right? And I understand that now that I'm older. Growing up, I was quite resentful of that because I had to work 2 jobs. I had to do different things to take care of my stuff and, he's paying for their college. He's paying like,
No, I had literally the same experience. I had
and
to
I
put myself through college and work, 2 jobs just to pay for
just
my
to
courses. Yeah.
but I always tell them, I go, "Into Befekru, like what, we live this high life here in America?" No, it takes a lot of work.
They think money like grows on trees.
I
But
would tell yeah,
I
it's
also feel
it
like from their perspective, is like this is what they're seeing. They're seeing America as this luxurious place, like it's the dream where everybody wants to go. They're not seeing the struggles we actually have to face here. And
and so
now,
what that's right. So when I went back home at 13 and I would see them gadding, they're drinking their shay with their maza, the maza on the table,
yeah,
and they're talking and they're laughing, and then you're playing cards, or they're smoking argila, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this life is so peaceful. And then you're tehted, the warak the wali, and then I would climb
yeah,
the toot tree as a kid, and I thought, we don't have that in the US, right? I was 13 working in my dad's store, every day after school, working there and so while they may see us here in luxury, and it's not to say that we definitely have our privileges, believe me,
yeah, absolutely.
yet there's a quality of their life that I envied. I quite envied that, when I went back.
Yeah, it's jnene, and there's nothing better than sitting in the jnene and having, what they in Arabic, how do they say Isha? So, and my Arabic isn't as great. Sometimes it's really
I
good.
well,
Most of the time, it isn't.
your Arabic is amazing.
Oh, thank you. I'll have to let my mom know that. Hey, my Arabic's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
So I want to transition.
yeah,
We'll probably come back around to speaking about men's health for sure. But one of the most popular, I guess, topics have been is relationships, marriages, going
mhm.
through a divorce, being in a toxic relationship. So I want to kind of start talking about relationships, and we often hear the term narcissism, gaslighting, and it seems like anybody nowadays, because their relationship doesn't work out, they accuse the other person of being a narcissist. So let's just dive deep into the ugliness of relationships and Arab relationships. How do we know this is a healthy relationship? What is a healthy relationship? So wherever you want to go with it, Tiffany.
So, okay. So, Arab, our relationships, we have to remember, anybody in a relationship, there's the added layer of the collective family, right? The added layer of not just your mom and dad in their opinion, you have your aunties, your ammos, everybody has an opinion. So when a couple is first starting out, I totally understand why many do it in secret if they're able to do that, to try and block out as much noise as possible.
Hmm.
So once you get the families involved, from my experience, it creates a significant amount of stress. And if the families don't get along, well, that's double the stress. So you have now the couple maybe engaging in, before I talk about healthy, I want to address the larger dynamics, which may lead to some of the behaviors. So now the couple is feeling the pressure. if they don't have the proper emotional regulation skills, distress tolerance skills, communication skills between themselves to say, okay, my father's being very difficult or my mother's being extremely toxic. If what's happening is if that person is in denial around who their parents are, that's going to cause a lot of problems in the relationship. So the more that person has awareness about
Mm.
their family dynamic, says yes, they look at their husband or they look at their wife or they look at their partner and they're saying, "Hey, I know this is a difficult family dynamic. How are you and I going to come together so that we can navigate this well?" But what happens is they start to nick ala ba'ad, they start to make them the issue versus the greater issue,
Yeah.
which the family dynamics, the cultural expectations, the societal expectations. So now they're not feeling safe with each other. There may be, if the some control, whose family is better, which family are we going to do? The power is typically imbalanced. So when one partner controls, so now we're moving into with if one partner controls finances, decision making, social life, there's going to be a lot of resentment, a lot
Yeah.
of resentment on either one or the other. So the other piece is a healthy partnership will be able to manage that by saying, okay, I know your family wants us to be at the holiday every year. You're
Yeah.
gonna have to say no because this year, we've got cousins coming from back home. This is such a special event. How do we communicate so that we can really make this work for us? Because they tend to see it as this family against that family versus we're all one big family. And how can we navigate this in a way that you and I are not getting impacted and our children are being impacted?
Yeah.
I think couples really need to be honest with themselves around the challenges that their families may be integrating into and the pressures.
Well, I think one of the first like one of the first stressors is the whole dowry thing.
Mhm.
Oh, well, my daughter is worth this and my son is worth that. It's just like, yeah, I'm sure, like, what's going on here? I think character is more important than anything. How this person handles conflict, how they handle finances. Those are the core important issues rather than what is my daughter going to get if she gets divorced. And
Well,
it's just like the focus sometimes, I'm like, is that really the most important thing right now? And this is creating a conflict, what potentially could be a beautiful marriage.
but that speaks to in the olden days, they gave the dowry as or like dahab, or they didn't give her masari. They gave, right? Why do so many Arab women have so much dahab? Because back then they would give that just in case he died earlier, just in case divorce wasn't, but
Yeah.
that she had a way to sustain herself and sustain her family. So again, that the essence of the dowry was to for protection. Yet over time we've lost that. And now the dowry, if we think about it, most women are can be, especially here in the US or maybe in the Dia and even in Arab country, you know, that they can take care of themselves,
Mhm.
self-sustaining. And so this idea of what we're focused on, yes, I agree with you. I did a whole video on we're looking at when you're having a partner, you want to ensure his or her emotional stability. You want to assess for any control or rigidity, this power dynamic. If there's any criticisms or put down early,
Red
that
flags.
or in our culture, this is where it's a little sneaky because we tend to be sarcastic with jokes. And
Yes.
so this could be masked as I'm just joking. هيك إحنا we're sarcastic, مزح, right? Yet in a partnership, there's a fine line that that because then you're putting down your husband or you're putting down your wife under the idea that it's sarcastic or joking, yet that can lead to emotional abuse. So we need to be really careful with that. The other thing is we have so much this any lack of respect. Do you respect your partner? Do you like them as a person? I think one of the things I see in Arab relationships is they're choosing the partner because they click off the Arabi societal check.
Checklist. Hmm.
Now, what happens is uh, they're doing that because it'll please the family. Yet when you dive down with your client, they're like, "Ugh, I don't even like this guy." I said, "Well, if he wasn't Arabi, would you be with him? Or if she wasn't Arabiya, would you be with her?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, no, I would
Probably not.
probably not." I said, "Okay, and you think that this is going to be a successful marriage
No.
because if your values, just because you're Arabi, does not mean your values align."
Right, absolutely. Well, what would
Well,
you say? What would you say are the Arab checklists? Just so, so we have some context here. Is it drives a Mercedes? Is a doctor?
Well, I think if we go down the this is the poor guys. Look at all the pressure. Like
Hmm.
you have Mohammed. Okay, and this goes for the gals too, right?
Absolutely. Hmm.
She needs to. So it's not they need to be educated, of status, whatever that means to that
Right.
family, whether it's a career status or financial status, right? They need to look a certain way. They need to dress a certain way. They need to adhere to all of the family um, obligations with a smile and look good. And I think we start there. Oh, do they speak Arabic? And then you can move into, do they cook Arabi food?
Hmm.
Or do they have a clean house? Some of the more gender for women. Does she know how to conduct herself? The list goes on and
Yeah,
on
it's
and on.
it's always he comes from a good family or she comes from a really good family.
And when they say that, that usually means not family in character, but family in status.
Right, absolutely.
And so if the woman or the man, if they are not careful in getting seduced into, because we all get seduced into that,
Hmm.
because we want to belong. We want to be with our culture. A lot of times it is easier when you're married to somebody Arabi because they understand. You don't have to explain. There's just an inherent understanding of certain obligations. And yet that doesn't necessarily mean peace and harmony in the home.
Right. So I guess if we had to come up with like qualifying questions or definitely things we should pay attention to aside from the joking of what can couples do before they get married to know if they're compatible. Like what are the important things? I know we talked about money, but is it more day to day? Like are they on a system? Do they want to work out? How are they going to share responsibilities in the home?
Yeah, I think if couples were to do a values checklist, at
Hmm.
least with all my clients, whether Arab or not, I say let's take a look at uh, all your values, all his values, and then you circle your top three values, and
Hmm.
his top three of values. Do they align? Now, if they don't align, you may want to really slow down to think through because values typically do not change.
Right.
So if she doesn't value money, as an example,
Hmm.
be more free and wants to just live uh, in that less rigid lifestyle of
Hmm.
work, school, no, yeah. And he really values that and is working, and then
Right.
he doesn't want to take the time off for you to go do camping or you to go do the things that you want to do. That's gonna get old real quick.
Right.
Or if you value, let's see, what would be a common one that I see? Finances is a big one. Um,
I think generally speaking, every relationship finances I think don't they say the first 5 years marriages end because of finances?
Yes, because nobody wants to talk about the reality of, um, money. So the woman may
No.
f this is what I hear from men, she fills her emotional needs through, um, buying things, and he cannot keep up with the amount of buying that she's doing, and then the guy goes into debt, and he feels more pressure, and then he's resentful. If she's not willing to look at that for herself,
No.
uh, or buying the luxury brands or those things, and that's not a value of the partner when she's spending 3, 4 grand on a handbag, that's gonna cause a
No.
lot of problems because he doesn't value that.
Right. And then it ends up women end up because there's a lot of jokes out there about women hiding the packages from their husbands because the husbands are
So
gonna
now
be upset.
that's right. So now you're moving into, uh and then when they find out, they become extremely upset, and that's what may lead to divorce because it's not just hiding the packages, you're lying to your partner.
Right.
You're
Right.
not
Well,
being
you're definitely hitting on some foundational relationship issues there, and if you're trying to do that, she shouldn't be.
trust
So,
is that crux of any
uh
relationship. Safety is the number one safety and trust are not the foundation of any healthy relationship. Respecting boundaries. If your partner is saying, no, I really cannot have you spending money on things because we're trying to move forward as a family, we're trying to accomplish
yeah,
our as a family, you're not respecting the boundaries. And that's the second thing in a healthy partnership is respecting each other's boundaries.
right.
And I tell couples, if your partner says, "I don't wanna go to this family event because I'm exhausted," and you don't respect and you force them, "Lazim, you have to. Oh, they'll be so mad." It's one event out of 50 family
Right,
events. Can you take the heat for your partner just that once and say, "Hey, my need some s need some rest." But
right.
no, instead, we put down our partner, we criticize the partner, we say sarcastic remarks versus setting the boundary with the family.
No.
So that's very important to have respecting your partner's boundaries. And then the other piece is what we were speaking to earlier around open and honest communication. Now, when we come from a culture where we're not very direct,
Right.
and we emotionally suppress and we kind of hide around our feel. Oh, I mean, we're a culture of
Well,
dichotomy. Either they're in your face or they're not really speaking to what they're feeling.
because they're shamed for it, essentially. If they do express their feelings, they're shamed for it. At least
That's
that's
right.
what I've
Or
seen. Yeah.
yes, or you're put down or you're seen as weak or you're too dramatic, too sensitive. You're making something bigger than what it is. But every time in the couple, every time the wife or the husband or the partner minimizes
No,
that person's experience and is not open to discussing it, it's going to cause a lot of problems
absolutely.
and
So now,
resentment.
when they're in a relationship, how would a woman or a man know that they're in a toxic relationship? Because oftentimes the focus is always on the woman experiencing the toxic husband, but men also experience a toxic wife of maybe hitting, maybe throwing things. So, I mean, that's extreme. Obviously, you would know you're in a toxic relationship that's happening, but what are some signs that we could look out for to let women know or men know that this is a toxic relationship and you need to take a step back from it?
Yeah. So yes, it definitely goes for both men and
Uh-huh.
women because I've seen a trend um, with uh, the Nat Arab. Now, listen, I'm always on y'all's side, right? Because I'm one too, and I get it. There's this dangerous narrative that we're seeing that we don't need men. Uh, Men are all toxic. Men are dangerous. Men, and uh, we're going too far on this side of
No,
the spectrum in not owning or recognizing our part. So you're seeing a lot of self righteousness, a lot of um, he needs to fulfill every single one of my needs. And that's not what a healthy relationship is.
Yeah.
He can pour into you, but are you able to receive? Not just
No.
financially. So I just wanted to put that plug into the young women is to, yes, I'm all about independence. All
Yeah, no,
for
it's the same. Same here. I totally get what you're saying. I think the important thing is we have a balance, not just be on one of the extremes. And just like a woman has expectations of how he should be approaching her, how he should be dealing with her, men also have that same expectation. And it's going back to what are those values and how are you guys going to be compatible to make a successful marriage be successful?
That's right. And so I think when you're in a toxic relationship, it begins by looking within yourself and asking, do I feel safe? Now, you may not, you have to assess that because if you have a woman or a man that sees you, affirms you, loves you, to your nervous system, if you grew up in a chaotic family system or in a toxic family system, any safety may feel unsafe to an unhealed nervous system.
Yes, beautifully said.
So I always tell my clients, if you meet a partner and you feel safe and you want to run for the hills, let's slow down because that might be your person. So I would say it's important to determine, do I feel safe in my body? Now, if you feel safe and you want to run, then you know there's unhealed trauma that needs to be addressed.
No.
The if So with that said, lack of safety is most people know when they're in a challenging situation. The issue is they make excuses, they don't have enough self-confidence, or they doubt themselves too much when really their instincts, and I say this, uh, their instincts were probably spot on from the beginning, but they negate it and they suppress it
No.
because growing up, we always deferred everything to our families.
No.
We deferred a lot of our emotional attuning. Okay, should I feel this? Is this okay? Can I do this? And they would say, la, no, right? And so you learn to suppress you, but my instinct says that's not right for me. Nope, that's good for you. So what do? You learn to override it and suppress it.
No.
So when you're in a toxic relation or when you're in a relationship with that lacks safety, where there's any kind of control, uh, again, in finances, decision making, the social life. Oh, I don't want to do that. I only want to do this. The Arabi guy that, you know, loves to hang out with his friends and only wants to hang out with his friends and doesn't want to do anything with your friends, or the Arabi girl that it's her friends, her family, her life, and the Arabi guy's like, hey, I got my buddies that I kind of want to spend some time with, and
No.
she shutting it down with that control or manipulation of, you don't love me, you don't care about me, and he just wants to spend some time with his friends. uh, there's a power imbalance. That's a huge anything involving ultimatums or tantrums or threats. If you leave, you'll regret it. You won't find anybody better than me. I'm going to kick you out. Anything like
Oh my
that,
God. Yeah.
huge red flag.
Well, it's sign also immaturity too. I mean, with people who deal with. I mean, I know there are adults who deal with relationships like that, but I think there is an emotional immaturity there when you're making these sort of threats and not being able to kind of communicate what your needs are. If that makes any sense.
Yes, it makes total sense. And I think that's one of the green flag. What do they say? Green flags, red flags. One of the green flags
Yeah.
is if there is a partner or somebody, a prospective. Now he may not fit the boxes. She may not fit all the Arabi boxes. Yet he or she can attune to you. They're emotionally mature. They're able, but that's not sexy, right? To an
Yeah.
unhealed person, that's not, and but I go back to what my teta says. Uh, she would say, uh, y- it's okay, Teta. He's ugly, but you learn to love him,
He's ugly.
right?
Well, women are very forgiving. We do forgive in order for
I
us to
said,
get married and
I said,
check that
ugly.
quota. Like, I'm done.
I go, Teta, ugly's not hot. She goes, ye inty.
Right. Well, it's interesting because in our culture also, if you're divorced, if you are going to get married again, they will throw like the most ridiculous scenario at you, like a guy who's, I don't know, maybe 75 years old and you're in your 30s. Like, it's crazy. It becomes like in the sense of like, accept this because you're divorced. Like, something is wrong with you. You're a bad apple. You didn't make it.
Well, I was 34 and my Teta would say, and I wasn't married. I had a fulfilling career. That wasn't enough. She said, Bas GB a ishi, Teta. A ishi. I go, Teta, and I'm worth a ishi? And I did. And I got divorced because I was 34. I was feeling so much shame around
No.
not being married. All my cousins were married. They had their children. They were doing the Arab perfect dream. And I was the misfit. There was so much shame I held around failing my family and not being married. And when the message was GBA ishi, of course, 34, I said, well, biological clock is ticking. Let me
Hmm.
just grab the first decent human, right? And it wasn't decent. I mean, with all due respect to my daughter's father, I mean, he
Right,
had
right.
but I went like, let me take the most wounded
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm going to match that wound within me. Right. And then, of course, ultimately divorcing, but much, I divorced at 40. So I wasn't even married 5 years. I was married 4 years.
Yeah. SubhanAllah. I know for divorce is very tough because there is this pressure. Like, when I went through my divorce, I like knew that this was the time I have to let it go, but I had so much shame what my family was going to say, what people were going to think of, like, oh, hey mutalla, hey mutalla, hey wahda taliq, like she's, as if it's like this negative connotation to it. And also the identity aspect, it may sound crazy. We weren't compatible, but we grew up together in a way. So much of my identity was tied into him and his family that I didn't know how to be myself. Like, I didn't know how to like go in the world by myself at this point. But then I did it, and let me tell you, it was the best decision I've ever made in my life. And I don't care what anyone says. I just know it was what I needed to do.
Yes.
So,
Oh, I agree. My divorce propelled me 10 years in my emotional growth and well being. And I did that for my daughter, who was 3 at the time. And I said, I will never have her go through this
yeah.
messaging. I will never have her go through what I went through. And that propelled me on a journey to ensure that whatever messages I received, uh, limitations, my communication, improvement in my communication skills,
Mhm.
really releasing some of that cultural shame and guilt to be able to raise her in a way where she can embrace the beauty of the culture. And
Yeah.
she loves our culture very much. And for her, she does not know any of she sees some of the negative aspects of it, yet she doesn't
Yeah, right.
internalize those negative aspects as something about her at all.
Right. I mean, because our culture is beautiful. It's just, I feel like we mentioned earlier, the displacement, the colonization, the immigration. It's just like there is trauma there, and we're acting out our traumas in these relationships that we're having. I mean, it also goes back to relationship with females, like in female to female friendships or male to male friendship. There's always this, like, at least from my experience being raised in Jersey with Arab, like just seeing Arab girls, there is this competitiveness. And we can say that generally speaking for all girls, for all, any culture of females. But it's also with our culture. هي أحسن منك. هي أنت لا أنت شوفي هي بنت مين شو عم تساوي or ابن مين شو عم تساوي. And it's as if like what I'm doing isn't enough.
So I talked to my mom about that, and she has shared many stories about my anyway. My tetes was quite.
I love your tita already, by the way. I don't
She's amazing. Good. Allah yarhamha.
Allah yarhamha.
She was the feisty. She was way ahead of her time. And but my mom, I said, Yama, how come you guys do that? Like you compare us to other people, or Shuf Binte or Shuf Ibn Hadha, and she said they that not my parents didn't necessarily do that, but it was more from a larger perspective of the culture. And she said it was our way to help motivate you to do better. That there was this fear that if you did not compare to other people, that you may tkunu kaslanin or
Yeah.
lazy, or you won't work as hard. And I said, you realize that yes, in some level it did work, because many of us are overachievers,
Mm-hmm.
tops of our class, uh, accomplishing some pretty cool things, yet we never feel good enough. It never feels like it's because, and it's never celebrated or honored because it's going to be compared to somebody else. And so this is another thing I wanted to help shift for the younger generation is celebrate your children. Celebrate what they do and do not compare them, especially when it comes to body image and physical
Mm.
attributes. Do not do that. Do not compare studies or this Ashtad min Hadha and this. Honor them for who they are. Embrace their gifts. They may not be academically inclined, but maybe they're inclined in other ways. Celebrate that. You never
Yeah.
know where that's going to go. However, within our culture, this comparing also creates cousins hating each other, siblings not liking each other, because when the parent or the adults infuse that competition
Uh-huh.
instead of embracing this and celebrating the unity, they inadvertently create these negative dynamics between people. I had a
Right.
friend who passed away.
Allah yarhamha.
Thank you. We grew up together. We were little. We were compared a lot growing up, and she did not like me, and I didn't like her. And it wasn't we had a mutual friend, so we were all in the same friend group, but I was like, God, I can't stand her. And she was like, I can't stand her. And then when she was going through her cancer, and she had small kids and I had my daughter, and we spent a lot of time together, I said, why do you think we hated each other growing up? And we talked very honestly about this comparison and how it impacted our ability to really play and have fun with each other, because we were constantly trying to measure up to who
Yeah.
knows we were trying to measure up to. And it was very healing to have that conversation, because we realized how silly it was and how the adults in our life with this comparison created a lot of pain. And we were lucky enough to have that healing and that open and honest dialogue with each other before she passed. And I think we need to have more of those conversations.
No.
My cousin, he and I talk about that all the time. How they were compared to me, I was compared to them, yet our relationship survived because we had
Yeah.
friends.
Well, I definitely think like the conversation needs to be had, but only I guess if people are willing to have these conversations. Many people don't want to admit that this is what they were taught and that there is kind of the struggle that they're having towards you. Like no one wants to admit like, oh yeah, I'm a little jealous of you, so this is why I am acting this way or treating you this way. But I think if we were just raised in a way that celebrated all our differences collectively, like you have, because we could all win. Like there's room for all of us to win in our own unique
It's
way. And we could do the same exact thing, but maybe you do something a little different that makes it better for you, and I do something a little different that makes it better for me. But we all have room, and there's opportunity for all of us to win. And I just wish that was the message that I got growing up. And but again, this isn't just pertaining to our culture. I think generally speaking, with women, that we do tend to engage in relational aggression, and there is this competitors. Like, I have to be the best one. I have to have the most. I have to just be the one. But it's like, can't we just all be the one? Like, just simplify it. We're all the one. We're all amazing. We're all great.
I have a joke. If we can bottle up female competition and mommy guilt, we would have weapons of mass destruction.
Oh my god, absolutely, absolutely.
But I think going back to relationships, if we can practice this with people like our cousins or friends, that when you get into, if you can get good at that with the people that are closest to you, if there's opportunities to do that, then when you're in a romantic partnership, when things are even more escalated because of our attachment issues and our attachment traumas, that once you have the skills to be able to be open and honest
No,
and also take accountability, you have to admit when you're wrong, or you have to admit when you've harmed, or when your speech wasn't elevated or kind. It takes humility to be able to say to your partner, you know what? I messed up because I spoke to you in a way that was very disrespectful. Now, how often was that modeled for us growing up?
no, it wasn't
And
really
so
modeled at
this
all.
is where we offer ourselves grace and kindness that we didn't have the proper modeling to be able to. So you're learning all these things. And as new couples or as people come together, yeah, you're going to fumble, you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. It's how do you continue to come together? And I think we're not very forgiving.
No, we're
And
not.
practicing these things, you need a lot of
Yeah,
self
yeah.
because not easy.
Well, you mentioned mom's guilt. I guess let's talk about a relationship when there's kids involved, right? And our culture tells the men that they are, the providers. They're not really there to help with the children. That's at least the message that I got growing up. It's like the man is there to provide, but the woman and how home duties all fall on a woman. And I guess should that be the case? It definitely leads to burnout. What advice can we offer couples in our community to help? Because I don't know if all men are stepping up to help their wives with children. And
Yeah,
then you
those.
have,
Yeah.
I'm
I
sorry.
think it's shifting. I think that is shifting because I work with a lot of young Arab men who are
Oh,
in
cool. Okay.
quite hands-on. I don't know if that's, and so I was very happy to hear that, uh, because the women work just as many hours as the men, and that could be extremely challenging. However, I think in more traditional families, uh, the only thing I can say to that is, what does she need from him? She may not need him to help clean the house. She may be perfectly
Sure.
happy, but she needs him to bring her flowers or take her out on a nice date without the kids, or she may need a simple card. It's about, it may not necessarily be these, it's understanding what do you need from your partner, and it may not be the traditional 50-50, which is not reality. It may not be him stepping up. It may be him saying, I'm going to get my sister to watch these kids so you can go hang out or do something. It's about the partner stepping up, or maybe the
Yeah,
guy,
yeah.
it's about necessarily, it's about assessing what the needs are, not necessarily the traditional things of cooking, cleaning, and laundry.
Right. Well, now in your practice, what are some other issues that young Arab Americans are going through?
Arab Americans, let's see. Autonomy versus family obligation is probably the number one thing
Okay.
that I see is, how can I honor myself while still being in this family dynamic? Relationship issues, how to navigate. If they're both Arab, how to navigate family dynamics and keep communication open. If one is Arab and one is not Arab, how to manage some of the cultural disconnects that come with that. The other one that I see is if they're from the LGBT community,
Hmm.
and living a double life in that way, how to hold space for them around, sometimes helping to support them to come out to their families, which is a huge, huge step in one's journey, and continuing to create safety around that. So those are probably the top issues that I see.
Right. And in your experience pertaining to the last issue you just mentioned, how have parents been? Have they been receptive to these sort of conversations with the clients you've had, with them coming out?
Uh, it's like half and half.
Half and half.
So the ones that have been not accepted by their families, dealing with the loss around that, and
No.
then those that have been accepted by their families, celebrating uh, the beauty in that, because it's quite
No.
wonderful when the families can embrace their children, going against all cultural um, uh, uh,
No.
messaging around that. So
Well,
it's
especially
very,
even not only even here in America, but back home, there's a lot of it, but no one talks about it. It's all lived in private. Like no one
yes,
speaks about it.
I think it depends on the family. Some
Even
families,
back home in Middle East.
yes, I
Oh
think it
wow.
depends on the family.
Okay. I've never
Yeah.
experienced that. Usually it's always like you just never talk about it and you don't say
Uh,
anything.
they don't, but if they're in therapy, they're wanting to talk about it. So that's why my lens is a little bit different,
Oh,
because
interesting. Okay, it's good to know.
I'm from, yes, so it's a little different. But I agree with you. I mean, it's not talked about, it's quite hidden, uh, and it can be unsafe for many people from our community, from the LGBT community, to come out in those
Yeah.
ways. And so we need to be very mindful in how we address that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a teacher. I teach at a high school, so I've had a lot of experience in students coming to talk to me about these sort of things, and it is a struggle. I mean, life for teenagers as Arabs is definitely. I mean, just teenagers generally speaking is a struggle, but when you're Arab and all that dynamic that comes into it, it's even more. I mean,
If I can say, if parents, the one gift that they can give to their children early is their own self-awareness and understanding where their triggers are. And that what they don't understand is the autonomy that you give your children is guidance. It's just saying, if you choose this, I'm here to support you. Here are some things I need you to think about, to give them critical thinking skills versus
no,
tell yes or no or what to do. Now, by the time they're a teenager, they'll already get so good at critical thinking and thinking things through and trusting their gut as children, because there's not a lot of layers. By the time they're a teenager, they're going to want to come to you for guidance. They're not going to want to hide.
no.
Not going to need to lie to you about going to a party, or maybe they experimented with smoking weed or whatever. And that way
Yeah,
you can,
yeah, 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 yeah.
and yeah, exactly. La la la
Yeah,
la.
yeah, yeah. فضحتونا فضحتونا.
That's right. And but at least they can come to you, and you want to be their safety. And yes, they're going to mess up, and absolutely they're going to make mistakes.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
are they going to, you know, are the NAS going to talk? Probably.
Yeah.
Yet, how do you protect your children? Because then, in turn, when they're seeking partners, they're going to know what that safety feels like. They're going to know what that protection feels like, and they're going to want to be around you. The younger
Yeah.
generation is moving away from the culture because the families are not recognizing that they need to shift, to not be open and let them do whatever they want. That's not what I'm suggesting.
Right, absolutely.
Definitely need guardrails for sure. It's about giving them safety to be able to talk to you about these things and freak out internally, like my daughter would share with me stuff. She's 17, and I'm a therapist, I'm trained, but she's still my kid. And so
Right.
she showed me stuff. I'm like, internally, I'm dying, and I just and I sit and I hold space. And I think that's my task, not her task, to hold my freaking out. And when I talked to her about that, she says one of the things you do that she appreciates is when she's telling me heavy stuff, I don't freak out.
No.
But I
I
was like,
have
internally, I'm dying.
I have a 4-year-old, and one thing I always tell her, I always say, "Mommy and Daddy love you regardless. We're always here for anything you ever want to say to us. We always have your best interest in mind." And I always want to reassure her, let her know, like, this is a safe space. You can come to us about anything, and we'll work through it, whatever it may be, however difficult it may be. So,
Nora, I love that message, and that is a gift you're giving her, and I hope other parents can hear that beautiful language that you shared
yeah,
and let their kids know you are safe here. And parents need to find their own safety in order to be able to do
right,
that.
right. Well, it's also like, just to add to that, not to just tell your child that your love is conditional. Like, I love my daughter unconditionally. I don't care what mistakes she makes in the world. I will help her the best way I can. And I think that's also one of the things in our culture. It's just like the love is conditional almost. Like, we love you, but if you do this, then you're out. You're out of the group.
That's right. And more often than not, no, you're not out of the group. They just say that to threaten you, to keep you in control. And if it's true and they move you out of the group, I have a whole live I'll be doing on the loneliness that's attached to that and the grief. But I
Right.
tell
So,
my you're not infringing upon my peace either. That boundary goes both ways. If I'm working harder than you in the relationship, then we need to revisit this relationship. It's a two-way street. Just because they're your child, she also has to be mindful of how she's showing up with me.
right.
And so that my peace is just as important as her protection and her safety. And
Absolutely.
being in a way that, uh, especially as a teenager, um, that may be infringing. Like if I'm working too hard, then she needs to take accountability. So I think that we need to really think that through with your own
Right.
kids, what that looks like.
Well, really quickly, I know we've been on for quite some time now, like an hour and 15 minutes. But
Oh wow.
can you kind of go into I know you have a video, which I think is very fascinating, about the dramatic mother, the type of mothers we get. And oftentimes our mothers act like the musalsalat of the yay and the drama of just how they're reacting. I mean, is that learned? I don't know. Whatever you could add to that. 'Cause I know you have a whole video on it, which I'm going to encourage people to go watch because you provide a lot of great information on that. But the type of mothers we have.
Yeah. Well, I have so much empathy for our mothers because a lot of that over dramatization is so much of their own shame and their inability to manage their emotions, and they had to suppress so much in order to survive. And so when they have these overreactions, I always envision that little girl that didn't get held or carried or loved or was in war or was harmed physically, emotionally, sexually. And she had no space to do that. And then she had to get married and put on look beautiful and cook all these elaborate meals with a husband that was working all the time, and she had all these children and had to be everything to everyone. And sometimes I wonder if how they function.
Yeah.
So our dramatic mothers, yes, for the we experience it as it's too much, it's too intense, it's hostile, it can move into toxicity. Yet in having empathy for now, it doesn't mean putting up with harm or toxic behavior or putting up with gaslighting or manipulation. It doesn't mean that, but it's to say I can recognize that you're in a lot of pain and I need to move away and protect myself in whatever way that means to me.
Mhm.
You're who you are. That's not gonna change, but I need to take care of myself. And if you decide you wanna shift or do work, I'm here with you. But until then, you you don't have to subject yourself to that emotional intensity. Because I guess my point is not about them being dramatic. There's so many reasons why they're dramatic. It's about how we internalize their dramatic
Mhm.
behavior and how much do we model that behavior with our own children.
Right.
Yeah, I call it channeling Teta. There's moments where I'm like, I go, Satya, I'm so sorry I channeled Teta. And she would,
I love that.
yeah, I was like, oh my God, I'm channeling Teta. She goes, it's okay, mom. I know you didn't get much sleep, or I know you're hungry. And I said, you know when that comes out.
Right.
So
But in your experience as a therapist, have you seen the dynamics of like mother-daughter relationships? Is there like a jealousy factor in our community?
yes, very I see jealousy as a big one because the very thing that they want you to have more freedom, they for those of us living in the United States,
Mhm.
like we are given more freedom, independence, choices. And as much as they want that for us, they resent it when we have it. And so sometimes if they're not healthy and integrated, that can come
Mhm.
out competition energy, jealousy, sabotage you. It can come out in all kinds of very unhealthy dynamics. However, you have to be aware of that for yourself
Yeah.
so that you don't get seduced into that, which we do time and
Yeah.
time and
I think maybe when you're an adult, it becomes easier because you have more control over your life. But when you're younger, it is very hard to cope with a parent who behaves that way because then you're like, how do I process this while I'm still navigating my own struggles as a teenager?
So that's where your role as a teacher, Nora, is so
Yeah.
important because you'll be able to, for the teachers out there and for my platform, and I hope that's my goal is when the young people are given different messages by other Arab not that you're an elder, but
No,
like,
no, that's okay. I own it. I love that I'm an
I'm
adult.
I'm the elder, okay, so you're the next generation, right? But it's sort of like, uh, where are the aunties and the amos and the cousins and the older generation imparting to the younger generation to give them a new viewpoint? And so that's where our voices need to be amplified more through podcasts, through social media, in our own families, sitting with my nephews. I said, go live your life, be free.
I love to
I said,
go out there, live your life.
look around you. Which one of us is the happiest? Right. And so
Right,
my nephew,
right.
they'll just laugh. They're like, there goes my crazy auntie. And I think that it gives them um an example of that there are different ways of being, that we don't have to keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
I wanted to talk about the loneliness that you were saying you were starting. You have a video or you're doing the video on loneliness
I'll
with
be doing
people
that Wednesday on Wadah
next one's
at 8
yes,
a.m.
let's
Pacific. I'll be, yeah. So for those that are interested, every Wednesday, I do Wadah Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific time, where I talk about emotional health and wellness topics within our cultural context. And you're free to ask questions. This week's topic or next week's topic will be loneliness when you're breaking generational cycles, and talking about the grief around that. So I spoke to this live was inspired by a young woman I spoke to who lives in New York,
Mhm.
and I just wanted to connect, and I said, sure, let's chat. And she talked about being alone in breaking out of these cycles that around her community. And I told her, we're all spread out in the world. We're all spread out. And my hope for community for international Arab is the community is this thread that we all kind of
Right, yeah.
together from around the world to say you are not alone.
Yeah.
And we're all going to support each other in creating the light within us to have it grow so that and to have it grow in a way that's gonna affect future generations so that we can live in the fullness of the beauty of our culture versus
Wow.
perhaps what we may be seeing now.
You have aside the Wadah Wednesday, you're also doing a database, right? You're collecting like, or you're putting together a bunch of different Arab therapists from like
Oh,
around the
yes.
U.S. or is it around the world?
Yeah, so the in this was spearheaded by the Arab American Mental Health Association. They're actually out of New York. This is a wonderful youth-led organization or young adult-led organization that I had the pleasure of collaborating with to do Arab database,
Mhm.
therapist base. So anybody that's looking for someone from our culture, you can go on the directory, you can take a look.
Yeah.
It's sourced by state, gender, topic, and there's everyone's profile there. So you can go ahead. And if there's any therapists out there, please join our directory. It's new
No.
and as many on there as possible so that we can help serve our communities because the need
Uh,
is great right now.
I'll link it below for everybody so this way you can have they can have access to it. And I'll join it hopefully once I finish my masters and I pass that test. I'll be joining
Oh,
that. Yay. Yay, yay,
yay.
yay.
We would love that.
All right, so now we've reached a moment where we say have the Yalla Let's Pop moment. Usually I pop a soda, but I have a bottle of water today. I didn't have time to run to the store to get soda, so you could if you have soda or you have water, that's perfectly fine.
I'm going to be popping my mint chai over here. So,
I
yes.
love it. I love it. I love it. All right, so I'll ask you just random questions just to get to know a little bit about your personality. All right, so what's one thing about Arab culture you never want to lose?
Uh, our hospitality,
Oh, I love that. What's one thing from our culture you think we should let go of?
judgment,
Okay. If all Arabs could wake up tomorrow with one message in their heart, what should it be?
unity,
I love that. Coffee or tea?
uh, both.
Both. I'm both too. But I am more coffee. I would probably pick coffee but I do have both. Shawarma or falafel?
Shawarma.
Okay. I thought you were gonna say neither.
I love them both
Oh,
equally.
you okay.
Yes, I'm a foodaholic. So I was like, oh, my mom's falafel is so delicious. But then the shawarma at the local shop is so good.
You know, I'm gonna be having dinner after this. Like I'm craving now one of these sandwiches. I should go.
Yes,
We have South Patterson over here in Jersey where it's like literally Arabville.
I love it.
We call it Little Palestine. It's actually named Little Palestine now. And
Oh, I love
you go there, so many restaurants, so many cafes. I mean, you're really back in the bled. I
Oh,
should
it
go
sounds
there and get a falafel sandwich. Kulthum or Feiruz?
Feiruz.
Okay. Biggest red flag in an Arab guy.
Um, cockiness.
Okay. And let's to keep it balanced. What is the biggest red flag in an Arab girl?
Uh, emotional manipulation.
Oh.
Oh, but
Arab,
that could be hidden. I would say, rigidity.
okay. Arab dish you still can't master.
Oh gosh. All of them. According to all of them.
That's so funny. Um, well, we already got this question. Which were you supposed to be? Teacher, engineer, doctor, or lawyer? We answered that during we were talking. What's a song that reminds you of your youth? I said in the Middle East, but I guess take us back to when you were there as a teenager. What was there a specific song that resonated with you when you were there?
Um, oh, back home,
Hmm.
you know who was big then was this is gonna be so inappropriate. Eddie Murphy. His comedy special, uh, that was big. So we were listening to that. So that reminds
Oh,
me of
okay. I
yeah.
thought you say Raghib Alama. Do you listen to Raghib
Oh,
Alama?
of course. I yes, yes.
Yes, that's
I
who I
mean,
remember. Him, Najwa Karam,
oh yeah.
Ram,
Wait. Oh no, that was Amr Diab. Sorry,
yes,
Habibi.
Amr Diab.
Sorry.
Rami Ayesh had just come out, I remember. He was like a new kid on the block singing حط راسي من فوق قدام العالم كله. That was one of the lines of his song.
I love it.
But totally random. Next time we talk, we could talk about how in our culture, one thing I like really don't like is in the music videos, like you'll see someone like Raghib Alama right now. If he does a video, he'll have all these young, like 20-year-olds or 18-year-olds or 17-year-olds in his videos, and they're all like chasing after him. Which I think I don't know. I'm like, why? Why are we doing this? Like, are you at? Let's put a stop to that, please.
Well,
Um, if
celebrity, so that sounds celebrity. They, it's that,
Yeah, but he's just these girls, women are too young for you, and I don't like this idea of like this 20, 30, 40-year gap. Like, why? I don't know. I'm turned off by it. If you could give yourself one piece of advice, your 15-year-old self, one piece of advice, what would it be?
don't compare yourself to anyone.
Favorite Arab saying you live by?
Yalla.
Love that. What's something people would be surprised to learn about therapists?
Not all of them are healthy and integrated. So I think it's very important for clients to vet therapists, even if they are from our own cultural background. You want to vet your therapist the way you would any medical provider. Uh, it's extremely important uh, to do your homework around who's going to hold the space for you, because it is such
Yeah.
an intimate space. You want to make sure that they have the training you need for what you're presenting with, and also goodness of fit.
Okay.
And
And what are some things they can ask? Like, what should they look for to know that this person is going to be a good fit for them or not?
well, first, from a cultural perspective, how much have they worked with collective culture? So it doesn't
Okay.
mean Arab culture, because I think I work with a lot of Southeast Asian
Mm.
individuals with very similar cultural messaging.
No.
So, do how much experience have they worked with collective cultures? Uh, if you're coming in with anxiety or trauma, how trauma informed are they?
Mm. Okay.
Substance use, you definitely want to make sure that they have a drug and alcohol background and training. Couples counseling, same thing. If they don't
No.
have training in couples counseling, probably
No.
wanna rethink that.
The drug and alcohol part I think is so important because that is also another issue in our community that isn't really talked about or addressed. The drug and alcohol component.
Addressing a whole series on drug and alcohol at a later date, but right now, I think the platform is really focused on just getting everybody's kinda let's all
No.
dip our toes and kinda figure it out, and then more next year, I'll be leaning more into some of the more challenging and difficult topics for sure.
Inshallah. So now if somebody wanted to work with you, do you do virtual sessions? Like if somebody wanted to reach out to you to work with you as you being their therapist?
Oh, so due to licensing requirements, unless they need to be in California or Utah, I
Oh,
do
okay.
do Middle Eastern coaching. However, they cannot have a diagnosis. So if they're coming in wanting to talk about uh, navigating their Arab wedding, for instance, and then
No.
coaching through that, I'll be able to do those things as well. And everything, I think, getting my website updated. So it's a little challenged right now because we're doing some new things and offering some new things. But
Yeah.
yeah, I do in California and in Utah, and then coaching if it's not relating to a diagnosis.
Or they could tune into the YouTube channel and learn everything you're teaching them
Oh,
and hopefully they can
yeah. There's
apply it and
plenty of
implement it.
content on YouTube. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
plenty on YouTube and on all the social media platforms. You can find me at, Tiffany Totah, MFT. So,
Tota. I love it. Tota. I love that name. All right. What's one thing that Arabs should stop apologizing for?
what's one thing Arabs should stop being
Yeah, stop apologizing for. Arab men or Arab women. You can even focus on
well,
that.
we need to stop apologizing for our existence. Um, we are
True.
here, and we are strong, and we're a beautiful culture, and we don't need to hide, and we don't need to if we're feeling feelings about what's happening in our part of the world, uh, we don't need to apologize for that. The devastation is astronomical in almost
Mhm.
every single Arab country, and if we have any feelings about it, shoo, مستحيل. It's like, oh, I don't know. Do I have to be quiet about these things and somehow apologize for my anger or my sadness or me? So I really would like, I don't, we need to stop apologizing for um, our
Yeah,
existence.
I agree. If your life story was a book, what would the title be?
What would the title be? The title would be The Crocodile Tale,
Okay. Love it.
because the crocodile, I moved in the world
Oh,
because the crocodile the tail breaks everything in its path. So
oh, look at that. If you could only drink one Kazouza flavor for the rest of your life, what flavor would it be?
what flavor?
What flavor would it be? If you could drink one Kazouza flavor for the rest of your life, what flavor would it be?
Oh gosh. What's your favorite?
Hamra. Kazouza Hamra.
Is that
That's why the podcast is called Kazouza Hamra. It just means red soda.
red soda?
Yeah, it just reminds me of a time my brother and I used to be in Syria, and that would be always be the first thing we wanted when we like landed off the plane, like get us a Kazouza Hamra.
I love it. I love
So,
it.
and I still haven't found it here in the U.S. It's this different, completely different flavor. I think now they may call it maybe khazne.
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's a Syrian. It's a by the way, it's a Halabiya thing. Many people don't use kazuza. I think in Syria itself, like Sham don't they say soda, I
I
think. Or
that I
khazne. They don't say kazuza.
Interesting. I'm gonna have
Yeah.
to I've not had I think I'm bewildered because I have not thought about soda or any of that in decades. So I was like, I don't even know. I wouldn't even know.
Okay. Well, listen, not everybody has to drink soda. You could do sparkling water. That's like
Sparkling water.
soda-esque. All right. Thank you so much, Tiffany, for taking the time to meet with me today. And I can't wait to already see if anybody has any questions. Feel free to let us know in the comments below. And I'll link your YouTube channel. I'll link all the information where you can have access to this amazing, brilliant mind because you are a voice that is much needed in our community. And I appreciate all the work you do.
Thank you, Nora. I
Yeah.
appreciate
Yeah.
your time and energy, and I'm here to support our community in any way that I can. I really appreciate you. Thank you so
All
much.
right. Thank you.